The American F1 fan, Eric Ringo here, and it is race preview time as we've got back-to-back races. We've just come off of Baku, and it is now time for the Canadian Grand Prix in Montreal at the Gilles Villeneuve circuit. And I've got to be honest, as a Formula One fan, this is one of the races I look forward to on the Formula One calendar. This track is just, I remember it as a kid and watching these races as a kid. It's just one of those tracks that just like, it offers up so much excitement. We get so much action throughout the race. And, you know, and it's been 3 years. It's been 3 years since we've been to Montreal, as obviously we've dealt with the pandemic. And we haven't been able to travel to Canada as a Formula One. And so I'm absolutely looking forward to Formula One getting back to Canada. But let's get on into the race preview for the Canadian Grand Prix. So coming off the Grand Prix in Baku, I think the biggest news story out of all of the race weekend was the Ferrari power units and how absolutely crap they were the entire weekend, as we saw literally four Ferrari power units all fail within that race weekend. But going into Canada, this is a massive power circuit. This is a circuit that you really, if you were going to take a new engine for a particular race or whatnot, this is probably one of those races that you would do it at, as there's not many high-speed corners. There's a lot of very, very low-speed corners. And you get into the more high-speed sections. You've got at least 3 DRS zones in Canada. You have obviously the main straightaway that's on the start-finish line. You have into the middle section. There is a just after section 2 or sector 2 starts, you have a DRS section there, and then obviously you have the massive DRS section on the back straight leading into the Wall of Champions. So this is a massive power circuit. This isn't going to do good for teams that have built their cars for more of a downforce setup. So, you know, some of the corners that you're looking into, obviously turn 1 into turn 2, this has been, you know, a set of corners that has offered up so many, you know, action-packed, you know, starts to races. You've had, you know, numerous people spin each other. You've had, you know, especially in the rain, you've had such massive, you know, wrecks going into turn 1 and turn 2. This is a section that if you can get a good start and you can get down the inside, that's the biggest thing going into turn 1 and into turn 2, is if you can get to that inside part of that corner, typically you can come out of that turn 1, turn 2 section, and going down that little short straight, going into turn 3, you'll typically be able to start pulling away there. So now the next big section where you see a lot of movement, and this is still in sector 1, but I believe, and I'm going to show the map here, I believe this is like the turn 5, 6, and 7, you know, sector. It's literally right on the edge of sector 1 and sector 2. But this is another area where we've seen a lot of moves. We've seen the likes of Sebastian Vettel, you know, losing traction in the rain, and Jenson Button being able to pull past him. This is a great little section that you can just sneak it down again on the inside of this corner and be able to pick up a few spots, because especially at the beginning of the race when you guys are so close together, it's going to lend yourself that people are maybe going to brake a little bit sooner than you would typically brake. And that'll lead you to be able to pick up, you know, that 1 or 2 spots in the very early going. So then obviously the last major part of the track that we need to talk about is the real tight turning into the back straight. I'm not real sure on corner names. I believe 9, 10, 11, and 12. Leading on to the main straight. So basically you have the real tight section there before you lead on to the back straight that leads along the river there in Montreal, and then obviously you have the Wall of Champions, where obviously it got its name from so many champions and just so many winners of this race, you know, making the slightest mistake and you know, putting it into the wall. That this is a spot that if you make even just the slightest mistake, even if you take just a little bit too much curb, or you brake too late, or you maybe brake too early even, you can lose spots here. You can end up into the wall. You can end up ruining your entire race just in this last sector alone. Now, like I started off this video by talking about, we were talking about power units, and the Ferrari power unit, which absolutely failed in Baku, and this has got to bring Ferrari and their Ferrari customer teams a little bit of worry going into the Canadian Grand Prix. Because typically you would want to either take one of your newer engines here, or you would wanted to have taken it in Baku. And if you took it in Baku and you were one of those 4 guys that ended up retiring from the Baku Grand Prix, you basically lost an engine. And so going into Montreal, you're basically going to have to get a new power unit. So Charles Leclerc is getting a new power unit. Carlos Sainz, there's some differing opinions on what caused him to retire from Baku. There's some people saying it was his engine, some people saying it was hydraulics into the gearbox that may have ended his race. Obviously, you had Kevin Magnussen and Guan Yu Zhou, who both had engine failures as well, as we saw the massive white puff of smoke come out of the back end. So this could tend to, teams potentially taking penalties, especially with Ferrari. And, their customer teams, Ferrari brought an upgraded power unit, and a lot of these teams that had already been 2 power units in to their allotted 3 power units throughout the season. And now, if you're having to replace an engine and now bring in a 4th one, some of the Ferrari teams are going to have to start taking penalties at some point, because you can only rebuild the Formula One engine to a certain extent. And obviously, if certain parts fail, that's going to mean that you're not going to be able to fix those parts, and you're allotted 3 parts per engine to be able to fix throughout the season. So let's say, for instance, this is just breaking this down rule-wise, we'll call it the internal combustion engine. You get 3 parts of those, of the internal combustion engine, for a whole season. If you go through those 3, anything you use after that 3, you get a 5-place grid penalty. So Ferrari and the customer teams, if they're going to have to go into this race and use another power unit, that Ferrari's going to start taking penalties as we go later and later into the season. And this has got to hamper Ferrari and those customer teams. And already now, with Charles Leclerc falling further and further behind after the DNF in Baku, he needs every position he can get over Red Bull. And going into Canada, you need every position you can possibly get. Now, I've taken a look at the weather forecast for the Canadian Grand Prix, and it could be very interesting going into Canadian Grand Prix, as it looks like Friday, Saturday, and Sunday there are chances for rain. Now, if there's anything I've learned watching the Canadian Grand Prix over the years, rain always brings out a much better race, especially in Canada, compared to anywhere else. We've seen such great drives like Jenson Button versus Lewis Hamilton. Yes, he may have put Lewis Hamilton into the wall, but like Jenson Button being able to basically make 5 pit stops in that race and was able to finally pass Sebastian Vettel on the very last lap of the Canadian Grand Prix. That's the kind of excitement we want. And so this is another one of those races that if we get rain in Canada, it could really bring us one of those really special races. So now it is prediction time going into the Canadian Grand Prix. So, coming off the race in Baku, we obviously saw how Ferrari power units were they were absolutely nowhere. They failed at every turn possible. Valtteri Bottas finished 11th, and Schumacher finished 14th, and you had the other 4 Ferrari and Ferrari power unit, teams not even finish the race. But I just have a feeling. So we talked about early in the season how Red Bull had reliability issues, and they were having, reliability issues with their engine. So I have a feeling, this is just, something gut, I have a feeling Red Bull is going to be the one with the reliability issues this weekend. I really feel like they are. I can't imagine that they've done too much upgrading to their engine that all of a sudden, magically, they've figured out the issue that was causing the reliability issues with their engine. I have a feeling that both Red Bulls will not finish the Canadian Grand Prix, and I've got a shocker for you. I know you're expecting me to say, because Red Bull is going to retire both their cars, that obviously a Ferrari car is going to win this race. That's where you're wrong. I'm going out on the huge limb, and we've seen such great racing from this particular person so far throughout the season. He is Mr. Consistency in Formula One right now. I'm picking the winner. I'm going out on a limb, and I'm saying George Russell is going to win the Canadian Grand Prix. I think Charles Leclerc is going to finish second. I think Carlos Sainz is going to finish third. I think Lewis Hamilton, as much as the back issues, and I know he's trying to fight through it so much, but I feel like Lewis Hamilton's going to end up in the fourth place. There's a part of me that wants to say that Lewis may sit out this race, but I know he is such a competitor that he is going to do everything in his power to be able to race in Canada. But guys, let me know what you think in the comment section down below. Who do you guys think is going to win the Canadian Grand Prix? Is it going to be a surprise winner? Is it going to be a first-time winner like George Russell? Or is it going to be, a Charles Leclerc or Max Verstappen? Let me know in the comment section down below. Guys, also slap a like on this video. This gets this Formula One content out to so many more Formula One fans. So guys, slap a like on this video. And guys, subscribe if you guys are new to this channel for more weekly, daily Formula One content. So much more Formula One content to come out throughout the season. We're almost to the summer break in the Formula One calendar, so we'll have some good fun videos there to kind of fill in that space of the Formula One summer break. But guys, thank you so much for subscribing to this channel. It's meant the world to me. But for the American F1 fan, I'm Eric Ringel, signing off.